The sky over Philadelphia was still half asleep, a faint gray stretching above the school parking lot. Jamal Brooks parked his old pickup near the gym's side door and let the engine hush into the cold air. On the seat behind him, his daughter Maya was curled beneath a blanket, clutching her colored pencils the way other kids held stuffed animals. She had fallen asleep sometime between the warehouse and the school, her small breaths fogging the window. Jamal sat a moment longer, his hands resting on the steering wheel. Another night shift done, another morning beginning before the sun had the courage to rise. His back ached, but the thought of Maya's smile when she woke kept him steady. He carried her inside, the echo of his boots soft against the new gym floor. The building smelled of fresh paint and sawdust, new but already full of plans. "You can sleep a little more, baby girl," he whispered, settling her on a folded jacket near the bleachers. "I'll just fix a few things and we'll head home." While the school was still empty, Jamal unpacked a small toolkit from habit more than duty. One cabinet door near the water fountain was hanging crooked. He knelt, tightened the hinge, and tested it twice. It clicked back in place with a sound that satisfied him deep inside, a sound that meant safe. At the end of the hallway, Principal Elena Morales stood with a clipboard, reviewing last-minute details for the charity game scheduled that weekend. She had been running on caffeine and deadlines for days, but when she looked up, she saw the man in the gray work jacket fixing the loose hinge without anyone asking. She hesitated, then stepped closer. "You work maintenance?" she asked, half curious, half cautious. Jamal glanced over his shoulder. "Not really. I drive deliveries at night, just helping out before the kids come in. Didn't want someone's fingers caught in the door." Elena nodded slowly. The simplicity of his tone unsettled her. No complaint, no need for praise, just a man doing what was right. Maya stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, can I draw the map today, the one that shows where everyone should run if there's a fire?" He smiled. "Sure you can. You always draw better maps than the grown-ups." She grinned, opened her notebook, and began tracing long blue arrows leading to the exit doors. Her little hand moved with quiet focus while Jamal kept working nearby. Elena turned back to her clipboard, but something about the child's drawing caught her eye. The door Maya had sketched, one of the new emergency exits, had a small gray line across the handle, like a band holding it shut. "That's a funny detail," Elena said gently. "Why did you draw that string?" "The guard said they tie the bars so the wind doesn't push the doors open," Maya answered, still coloring. "He said it's just for now." Elena froze for a second, her pen pausing above the checklist. Jamal straightened slowly, his eyes following the direction of his daughter's pencil. Down the hall, the real door stood in morning shadow, a faint plastic strip gleaming where light touched the handle. He walked closer, testing it. The bar didn't move. Elena's brow tightened. "That can't be right. They're supposed to release with one push." Jamal looked at her, the faint tiredness in his eyes replaced by something sharper. "Looks like someone locked an exit on purpose." The hallway stayed silent except for the buzz of the ceiling lights. Outside, the first bell was still minutes away, but the air already carried a strange tension, one small mistake hiding inside a brand new building. Jamal exhaled, low and certain. "I'll check the others," he said. Elena didn't stop him. She only watched as he walked down the hall, his reflection moving across the glass doors, unaware that the quiet choice he made that morning would pull them both into a storm neither of them could see coming. But he had no idea that what came next would change everything. By the next morning, the school felt alive again. The sound of sneakers squeaking across the gym floor mixed with the hum of chatter and laughter. Flyers for the charity basketball game were taped to every door. It was supposed to be a celebration, a sign that the new building was ready, safe, and open to the community. Jamal dropped Maya off at her class and stopped by the office. He wasn't the kind of man to stir trouble, but something about that tied door had stayed in his head all night. He waited until Principal Morales finished her phone call before speaking. "Ma'am," he began carefully, "I checked the exits yesterday. 2 of them were tied shut, one didn't even have the right kind of handle. I think someone needs to take a look before the game." Elena frowned. "I'll have the maintenance team handle it today." He nodded, though her tone made it clear the issue had been filed somewhere near the bottom of her long list. But as Jamal turned to leave, she added almost to herself, "We passed inspection last week. Everything should be fine." He wanted to believe that. Still, the memory of the zip tie cutting across the panic bar sat heavy in his mind. That afternoon, the Parent-Teacher Association gathered in the cafeteria for a final meeting before the event. Long tables were covered in posters, donation jars, and boxes of snacks. The air buzzed with excitement, and pressure. Every dollar raised would go toward keeping after-school programs alive. Elena stood at the front, trying to sound confident. If everything stays on schedule, we'll host more than 500 people this weekend. The district is watching closely. We can't afford delays. A voice from the back spoke up. Delays cost money, said Deputy Superintendent Howard Grant, a tall man with an easy smile and a sharp tone. We've come this far under budget. Let's keep it that way. Jamal was there too, invited as one of the parent volunteers. He hesitated, but when Elena opened the floor for questions, he stood. I'm sorry, but some of the emergency doors still look sealed. I don't think that's safe. If a fire alarm went off, people could get trapped. The room went quiet. A few parents exchanged glances. Howard let out a short laugh. I appreciate the concern, Mr. Brooks, but you're seeing things out of context. Those doors are secured to prevent drafts until the final check. No need to panic. Jamal held his ground. I'm not panicking. I'm saying it's dangerous. Howard's smile tightened. We've had 3 inspections already. Let's leave safety to the professionals. A murmur rolled through the room. Some nodded along with the deputy, eager to move past the tension. Others looked uncomfortable, unsure who to believe. Elena raised a hand. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. I'll verify the doors myself. Jamal sat down, feeling the weight of eyes on him. Maya was waiting for him in the hallway, holding her new drawing, another version of the school map, each arrow brighter than before. Daddy, look, she said proudly. I made sure every door works this time. He smiled faintly, running a thumb along the edge of the paper. I hope they really do, sweetheart. When they left the school, the autumn air was sharp and still. Across the parking lot, Howard stood near his car, talking to a man Jamal hadn't seen before, short with a clipboard and a construction badge. Their voices were low, but Jamal caught fragments. Tight budget, temporary fix, no one will notice. He paused, the sound of those words sticking like splinters. Inside, Elena looked at the safety checklist again, tapping her pen against the column marked Emergency Exits, Verified. She hesitated, her instincts pulling one way and her schedule another. She told herself it was probably fine, but somewhere deep down she already knew this wasn't over. And before the week was out, she would find herself standing in front of a crowd with with every eye waiting to see what she'd do next. 2 days before the charity game, the school buzzed like a hive. Volunteers carried folding chairs into the gym, banners were hung, and the smell of popcorn and fresh paint mixed in the air. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Inside, Jamal could feel the tension growing. Quiet, invisible, but real. He had promised himself not to make trouble, yet his conscience refused to rest. During his lunch break from the warehouse, he drove back to the school and walked the hallways alone. Most of the kids were in class, the air still. He stopped by the same emergency exit Maya had drawn. The zip tie was gone now, but the handle felt stiff, resistant. He pushed once, then twice. The latch moved sluggishly, not like a new door should. Mr. Brooks? Elena's voice startled him. She stood behind him, her hands full of folders. I thought you were off today. I am, he said. My body needed to be sure. The handle still sticks. She sighed. I spoke with the deputy. He said it's just humidity from the paint. The contractors will adjust it before the weekend. Jamal looked at her, calm but firm. And if they don't? Elena hesitated. She didn't like being questioned, especially by someone outside the staff. But there was something in Jamal's tone. Not defiance, just quiet conviction. I'll make sure they do, she said finally. That evening, the Parent-Teacher Association gathered again for the final walkthrough. The gym lights glowed bright over polished floors, the bleachers ready for hundreds of people. Howard Grant arrived in a crisp suit, shaking hands and smiling wide. We're in the home stretch, folks, he said, his voice echoing. Let's show the district what we can do when we work together. Jamal stood in the back with other volunteers, trying to stay unnoticed. He watched as Elena flipped through her checklist, marking each section. When she reached fire safety, she paused. Mr. Grant, she said, some of the exit doors still need to be checked. Howard's smile didn't fade. They're fine, they're fine, you have my word. Jamal stepped forward before he could stop himself. With respect, sir, your word won't open a locked door if something goes wrong. The room fell silent. One of the PTA mothers whispered, he's the dad who complained last time. Howard turned, his voice suddenly cooler. Mr. Brooks, I appreciate your concern, but let's not alarm everyone before the big day. These things always look worse than they are. Jamal's jaw tightened. Until they aren't. For a moment, no one breathed. Elena looked between them, caught between authority and instinct. She could see fear behind Jamal's calm, not fear for himself, but for his child. She had seen that same look before in parents who'd lost something they couldn't replace. Howard broke the silence first. We'll revisit it later. For now, let's keep the meeting productive. But the room had already shifted, the laughter didn't return, people avoided eye contact, pretending not to notice the unease settling in. When the meeting ended, Jamal helped stack chairs in silence. As he lifted the last one, Elena approached. "I know you're trying to help," she said softly, "but you need to trust that I'm handling it." He wiped his hands on his work jacket, choosing his words carefully. "Trust goes both ways, Principal Morales. You asked the community to believe this school was safe. I'm just making sure that's true." Her gaze faltered, guilt flickering in her eyes before she turned away. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady. Jamal sat in his truck for a long time, watching the drops race down the windshield. He thought about Maya, about her drawing, and about how easy it was for small things to be ignored until they weren't small anymore. Back inside the gym, Elena stood alone under the humming lights, staring at the checklist still lying open on the table. Every box was marked complete except one. Emergency exits, verified. She tapped her pen once, twice, and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, I'll check them tomorrow." But by the time tomorrow came, the problem would no longer wait for her, and the truth would reveal itself in front of everyone. By the following afternoon, the school gym looked like a scene from a dream. Balloons floated near the ceiling, the scoreboard flickered with test lights, and volunteers hurried to set up tables for food and raffle tickets. Laughter filled the air again, but beneath it, something still felt wrong. Elena Morales moved through the noise with her clipboard pressed tightly against her chest. She was exhausted, running on coffee and obligation. Every part of her wanted to believe Howard's assurance that the building was safe, that the contractors had fixed everything. But a voice inside her whispered that she hadn't checked for herself. In the corner, Jamal was setting up folding chairs with a few other parents. He worked quietly, his face unreadable. Maya ran between them, handing out programs she had colored by hand. She looked so proud, like this was the biggest event of her life. Jamal smiled at her, though his chest still carried that familiar tightness, the one that came every time he thought about what could go wrong. When Elena approached, he stood straight, their eyes met, polite but tense. "Everything looks great," she said. "On the surface," Jamal replied. Elena took a slow breath. The inspectors signed off, the doors were rechecked this morning. He nodded, but his tone stayed low. "Did you see them open?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. She wanted to say yes, she wanted to say she trusted her team, but the truth was simpler, she hadn't. Before either could continue, Howard's voice boomed across the gym. "All right, folks, one final test run before the big day." He clapped his hands, cheerful and commanding. "Fire drill, let's make sure our guests can find the exits quickly. Principal Morales, would you lead us?" Elena froze for half a second. It was meant to be harmless, a quick demonstration for the volunteers and teachers, yet her pulse spiked as she glanced toward the far doors, the ones Jamal had warned about. The alarm blared, a shrill metallic cry that bounced off the walls. People laughed nervously as they moved toward the exits. Jamal's eyes tracked the crowd, his steps quickening when he saw the group pushing against one particular door near the bleachers. The bar didn't move. "Push harder," someone called. "It's stuck," another voice answered. Jamal dropped the stack of chairs and ran. He shoved through the cluster of volunteers and grabbed the handle. It resisted, then then groaned open just enough to free the jam. The crowd spilled out, half relieved, half confused. Howard clapped again, forcing a smile. "See, just a tight hinge, nothing to worry about." Jamal turned toward him, the muscle in his jaw flexing. "A tight hinge can cost lives," he said. His voice was steady, but it cut through the chatter like glass. Elena's stomach twisted. The embarrassment burned hot under her skin. Not at Jamal, but at herself. She'd let someone else's confidence replace her own responsibility. The drill ended with forced laughter, but everyone felt the shift. Even the PTA parents who had once brushed Jamal off now whispered among themselves. Later that evening, after the gym emptied, Elena walked the hallways alone. The quiet felt heavier now. She tried each door one by one. Some opened smoothly, one still caught halfway. In the reflection of the glass, she saw her own face, tired, uncertain, and more afraid than she wanted to admit. She pulled out her phone and called the maintenance number listed on the construction paperwork. It rang twice before a man answered, his tone clipped and cautious. "This is Principal Morales," she said. "I need the final safety report for the exit doors." There was a pause. The deputy said those reports weren't needed until after the weekend. Her grip tightened on the phone. "I'm asking for them now." Another pause. "Ma'am, I'm not sure you want to see those numbers." Her voice hardened. "Email them to me tonight." She ended the call and stared at the dark hallway. For the first time, she realized the problem might not just be negligence, it might be deliberate. Outside, thunder rolled over the city, shaking the glass. Elena looked back at the sealed doors, the flicker of light reflecting off the handles. Somewhere behind one of them, a single plastic strip still held tight. And deep down, she knew the storm that was coming wouldn't stay outside for long. Because the next time those doors refused to open, it wouldn't be a drill. Rain swept across the parking lot the next morning, turning the puddles into silver mirrors that trembled with every drop. Jamal parked under the flickering streetlight and sat for a while before going inside. He was early, too early for any meeting, but something inside him wouldn't let him stay home. The hallways were quiet, the kind of quiet that made small sounds echo, the soft squeak of his boots, the buzz of the lights overhead. He passed the trophy case, the bulletin board, and finally stopped at Maya's drawing still pinned to the wall. Her map of the school looked brighter now, with all the new crayon lines, but his eyes caught one small detail again, that gray band across the panic bar she'd drawn. He reached up and traced the paper with a finger. "You notice everything, don't you, baby girl?" he whispered. Down the hall, an older maintenance worker was pushing a mop bucket. Jamal recognized him. Mr. Harlan, a quiet man who'd worked for the district for years. "Morning," Jamal said. "Mind if I ask you something?" The man shrugged. "Long as it's not about the budget." Jamal smiled faintly. "You been here for the whole construction, the gym, the new doors?" "Mostly," Harlan said. "But they cut corners at the end, brought in a contractor I didn't know. Quick jobs, cheap parts, the kind that look fine until you actually need them." He lowered his voice. "He's tied to someone in the district, everyone knows, no one says." Jamal's chest tightened. "You have proof?" The man's eyes darted around. "Not on paper, but I kept a copy of the inspection photos, the ones they replaced in the official file." He looked at Jamal, weighing his trust. "You didn't hear that from me." Jamal nodded slowly. "You're safe with me." He watched the janitor disappear down the hall, leaving behind the faint smell of disinfectant and old secrets. That afternoon, Elena sat in her office staring at the email she'd received overnight. Attached were the inspection reports she had demanded. Her stomach turned as she scrolled through the photos. The dates didn't line up, the door serial numbers were different. One image clearly showed a manufacturing label from a cheaper supplier. Someone had switched the hardware after the initial approval. Her office felt colder suddenly. She leaned back, rubbing her temples. "What have we done, she murmured. The door opened softly. Jamal stood there, rain still clinging to his jacket. "You got the reports?" She hesitated before nodding. "Yes, and they're worse than I expected." He stepped closer. "Then we can stop this before the event, right? Just shut it down, fix the doors." Elena let out a bitter laugh. "You think it's that simple? The district's already printed the flyers, booked the news crew. Canceling now would look like panic. They'll blame me." "Then let them," Jamal said, his tone calm but firm. "Better embarrassed than responsible for something worse." She met his eyes. There was no accusation in them, only a steady kind of truth that left no place to hide. For a long moment, she said nothing, then quietly, "There's someone above me pulling the strings. The deputy signed off on these replacements himself. If I go public, I go alone." Jamal nodded. "You won't be alone." Elena looked at him, really looked, and saw a man with dark circles under his eyes, a man who'd worked through the night yet still showed up because something didn't sit right. He reminded her of herself years ago, before ambition drowned out instinct. "All right," she said finally, with "We'll find out exactly what they did, and if there's proof, we won't hide it." As Jamal turned to leave, Maya appeared at the door, clutching her raincoat. "Daddy, I made a new picture for tomorrow." She held it up proudly. It showed the gym full of people, all running toward the exits with bright arrows pointing out. But in the corner, drawn in red crayon, was a tiny square door with an X over it. Elena bent closer. "Why did you mark this one, honey?" Maya smiled. "Because that one doesn't open right." The two adults exchanged a glance that said more than words could. Outside, thunder rumbled again, low and distant, like a warning. The charity game was only a day away, and the storm that had been building inside the school and inside their hearts was about to break. And what Maya had unknowingly drawn might be the clue that exposes everything. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the air still carried that heavy electric quiet that comes before something breaks. The charity game was set for that evening, reporters were coming, the district board would attend, and Elena could already feel the weight of every decision pressing against her chest. She sat at her desk, eyes fixed on the computer screen. The inspection files she'd received the night before were open, the mismatched serial numbers glowing like small red flags. She zoomed in on one of the photos. The cheaper door label was blurry but legible enough to prove the swap. Someone had doctored the official versions. Her office phone buzzed. "Principal Morales, the deputy is here to see you." She took a deep breath before opening the door. Howard Grant walked in wearing the same smooth smile he'd worn at every meeting. "You look tired," he said lightly. "You should be proud. This event's going to put the school on the map." Elena folded her hands on the desk. "Howard, we need to talk about the doors." His smile didn't waver. "Oh, not this again. The contractor assured me everything meets safety code." "I saw the reports," she said, "the ones you replaced with fake images." For the first time, his expression flickered. "You shouldn't be looking at those." "They're my responsibility," she replied. "And the hardware isn't compliant. It's cheaper, untested, and unsafe." He leaned closer, his voice lowering. "You don't understand how these things work. The district's broke. The original parts were back-ordered. I made a call. No one got hurt, and no one will. The game brings in donors, keeps the lights on. That's what matters." Elena's voice trembled, but not with fear. "You're gambling with lives, Howard." He straightened, smoothing his tie. "I'm protecting this school. You start spreading panic before tonight, and you'll lose your job. You'll lose their trust. Let me handle it." She looked at him at the polished calm of a man who had never stood in front of parents after something went wrong. "No," she said quietly, I'm handling it." Howard's eyes hardened. "Be careful, Elena. Loyalty is what keeps careers alive." When he left, the silence that followed felt like a bruise. That afternoon, Jamal met her in the teacher's lounge where the smell of stale coffee lingered. She told him everything, the false reports, the conversation, the threat. He listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening with every word. When she finished, he asked only one question. "You have a copy of the real files?" "I saved them," she said, "on the school drive, but if he deletes them before the audit, they're gone." Jamal thought for a moment. "Then we back them up somewhere he can't touch." They moved quickly, speaking little. Elena unlocked the network room. Jamal connected an old flash drive he used for his warehouse shift schedules. The hum of the servers filled the air, steady and cold. As the progress bar crawled across the screen, Elena felt her pulse in her throat. She kept glancing at the door, half expecting to see Howard walk in. When it was done, Jamal slipped the drive into his pocket. "You said the contractor's name was on the fake invoice?" "Yes," she said. "And there's another payment. Energy Systems Optimization. It's listed as consulting, but that company doesn't exist." He nodded slowly. "Then they're not just saving money, they're hiding something bigger." Elena looked at him, her fear turning into resolve. "We'll find out tonight. During the event, the press will be here. If something goes wrong, there will be witnesses." Jamal's expression darkened. "You mean when something goes wrong?" She didn't answer. That evening, as the gym filled with people, Jamal walked the halls one last time. He checked each exit, pressing every panic bar until his palms hurt. Most opened smoothly, but at the far end of the building, the one marked on Maya's drawing, his heart sank. The handle moved half an inch and stopped. He pulled harder, then crouched, running his hand along the edge. A small plastic tie, thin but strong, was wound tightly around the mechanism, almost invisible against the steel. Someone had put it back. Jamal stood there for a long moment, the crowd's laughter echoing from the gym, then he took out his pocket knife and cut the tie clean. The door swung open with a sigh, like it had been holding its breath too. He looked back toward the gym doors, hearing the announcer's voice boom through the loudspeaker. "Welcome, everyone, to our first community charity night." Jamal pocketed the broken strip of plastic and walked toward the noise, unaware that in less than an hour, the truth they'd uncovered would come crashing into the open, louder than any cheer the gym had ever heard. And by the time the crowd realized what was really happening, it would be too late to pretend nothing was wrong. The gym buzzed with energy, the bleachers were packed, the band played off-key but loud, and the smell of popcorn floated through the air. Flashing cameras lined the walls as the district board took their seats in the front row. It was the kind of night meant to make everyone forget their worries, or the kind of night that could rewrite reputations. Elena stood near the scorer's table, dressed neatly, smiling for the cameras. From the outside, she looked every bit the proud principal. Inside, her stomach was twisting into knots. She could see Howard working the room, shaking hands, cracking jokes, his confidence unshaken. No one in the crowd knew the danger that hid behind those doors. At the far end of the bleachers, Jamal sat with Maya. She had her sketchbook open again, drawing the game, the crowd, and the glowing exit signs above the doors. Her drawings always caught things adults missed. Tonight would be no different. When the first whistle blew, the crowd erupted, children screamed with excitement, teachers cheered, and the sound filled every corner of the gym. For a brief moment, Elena almost believed it would all be fine. Then, halfway through the second quarter, the lights flickered. Once, twice. The sound system crackled, and a faint smell of smoke drifted in from the hallway. At first, people thought it was part of the popcorn machine. A teacher laughed nervously, but Jamal's head snapped up. His instincts screamed something different. He stood quickly. "Maya, stay here," he said. Elena saw him moving toward the back doors and felt her heart leap. She grabbed the microphone. "Everyone, please remain calm. We're checking a small electrical issue." But the smell grew stronger, not popcorn, not paint, burned wiring, acrid and sharp. A maintenance worker burst through the side entrance, shouting over the noise. "Smoke in the storage hall! It's spreading fast!" The gym fell into chaos. Parents rushed for the exits, voices overlapping, panic rising like a wave. "Move calmly," Elena called out, but her voice barely carried. Jamal reached the first set of doors. They opened smoothly. Relief flashed across his face. Then he heard the yelling from across the gym. "This one's stuck." He turned. The same door Maya had marked with a red X in her drawing. He sprinted, cutting through the crowd, pushing past people trying to force the handle. The door wouldn't budge. Heat was creeping in from the hallway behind it, faint but real.
Elena reached him, breathless. "What's wrong?"
"It's tied again," he said. His voice was steady, but his hands shook as he pulled out his pocket knife. "Someone locked it." He sliced through the tie, the plastic snapping with a sharp sound. The door swung open and fresh air rushed in. People poured out, coughing, crying, holding their children tight. Across the gym, Howard appeared, waving his hands. "It's under control," he shouted, his voice trembling behind the forced calm. "Everyone, please stay calm." But no one was listening anymore. The fire alarm screamed overhead. Jamal turned to Elena. "We need to get everyone out now." She nodded, moving to the microphone again, her voice breaking through the noise. "Use all side exits, leave your belongings, just go." Maya clung to her father's leg as the gym emptied. "Daddy, the door really was broken," she said softly.
He lifted her into his arms. "You saved a lot of people by noticing, sweetheart."
Through the haze of smoke and confusion, Elena saw Howard near the electrical panel, frantically trying to shut off alarms. And for the first time, she noticed something else. A small control box near him, its wires freshly cut and a burnt smell rising from its base. He looked up, eyes meeting hers. Panic flickered there, not concern, guilt. The firefighters arrived minutes later, pushing through the doors Jamal had freed. Sirens wailed outside, red lights flashing across wet pavement. Everyone was safe, but the gym floor was streaked with soot, the air heavy with the scent of something more than smoke, something rotten that had been burning long before the fire started. As the crowd gathered in the parking lot, shivering and coughing, Elena looked at Jamal. "You were right," she whispered. "If that door had stayed locked..." He shook his head. "It didn't." She followed his gaze back to the building. The gym windows glowed faintly from the fire crew's flashlights. Behind one of them, the banner that read "Community First" was torn, hanging half off the wall. And inside, among the ashes, the truth they'd both been chasing was finally starting to show its face. The fire was contained quickly, but the damage was already done. Not to the building, but to the illusion that everything was fine. The crowd stood in the parking lot under a drizzle of rain, watching firefighters move in and out of the gym. Flashing red lights painted everyone's faces in waves of color, a reminder of how close they had come to disaster. Elena stood beside the district board, her hands trembling as she tried to keep her voice calm. "Everyone's accounted for," she said. "No injuries." But her throat felt tight. She could still hear the screams, the pounding on the locked door, the sound of Jamal's knife cutting through plastic just in time. Howard appeared behind her, his suit smudged with smoke, his composure cracking. "We'll call it a minor electrical issue," he said quickly, eyes darting toward the reporters. "The news doesn't need the details, just keep it simple."
Elena turned to him, disbelief hardening her tone. "You're still trying to cover it up?"
"Think about the school," he snapped. "About the donors. You expose this, we lose funding, we lose everything." Jamal stepped forward from the crowd, holding something in his hand. "Oh," a small melted strip of black plastic. "You mean this?" His voice was calm, steady, but it carried enough weight to silence everyone nearby. This is what was keeping that door shut, not an accident, a tie someone put there. Howard froze. "Where did you get that?" "From the door your contractor replaced," Jamal said. "And I've got photos, dates, serial numbers, everything that proves it wasn't up to code." Whispers rippled through the group. A few reporters lifted their cameras. Elena met Howard's gaze, her voice cold now. "You tried to hide it, even after I asked you directly." Howard's face flushed. "You're emotional. You don't understand the logistics." "Logistics?" She cut him off. "You almost trapped hundreds of people in that gym." The firefighters moved past them carrying a burned electrical panel. One of them, the captain, glanced at Elena. "Ma'am, this wiring didn't fail on its own. Someone bypassed the breakers. Looks deliberate." The words hit like thunder. Everyone turned toward Howard. He stammered, That's not possible. It must have been the contractors."
Elena's voice didn't rise, but the steadiness in it made him flinch. Those contractors worked under your approval, the same approval that swapped the door hardware. How many corners did you cut, Howard?
For a moment, the man's mask slipped. The calm smile vanished, replaced by something sharp and fearful. You don't know what it's like to keep a district afloat. You think integrity pays bills? Without this event, we'd lose half our funding. I did what I had to do. Jamal shook his head. You risked lives for a headline. Reporters closed in, cameras flashing. Howard turned away, barking into his phone, but his voice trembled. 2 police officers who had been helping manage the crowd stepped closer, exchanging a quiet word with the fire captain. Elena took the flash drive from her pocket, the one Jamal had backed up earlier. This has the real inspection reports, she said, her voice carrying across the rain-soaked parking lot. The fake ones came from his account. She pointed to Howard. You can verify the timestamps. Howard's voice cracked. You can't prove that was me. Jamal pulled out his phone and held up the photo he'd taken that afternoon. Howard standing by the control box, the wires cut, smoke rising behind him. I think this helps, he said. The officers didn't hesitate. They moved toward Howard, speaking quietly, guiding him toward their car. He didn't resist. Just kept muttering under his breath about misunderstandings and bad timing. The crowd watched in stunned silence. When the patrol lights finally faded into the distance, Elena exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. She turned to Jamal. You didn't have to get involved, she said softly. He met her eyes. Someone had to. Maya tugged on her father's sleeve, her voice small but sure. Daddy, everyone got out, right? He crouched down beside her, brushing a raindrop from her cheek. Everyone's safe. That's what matters. Elena looked at the father and daughter, the quiet man who had noticed what no one else did, the little girl whose drawing had predicted the danger. Gratitude rose in her chest, mixed with shame. She had almost ignored them both. The next morning, news headlines spread across the city. Parent volunteer exposes safety cover-up at school charity event. The truth had broken wide open. But as Jamal walked Maya to school under a pale sunrise, he wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about how close they had come to losing everything, and how sometimes doing the right thing meant standing in the rain while everyone else looked away. And for Elena Morales, it was the night she stopped being afraid of losing her job, and started remembering what it meant to protect people instead of protecting her image. Morning sunlight spilled across the wet pavement outside the school, painting soft reflections where the fire trucks had stood only hours before. The banners were gone, the gym closed off by yellow tape, but the echoes of last night still clung to the air, the sirens, the shouts, the fear. Elena stood near the entrance, her hair still damp from the drizzle, waiting for the district investigators. Around her, the staff moved quietly, their usual chatter replaced with whispers. The community had come dangerously close to tragedy and everyone knew it. When Jamal arrived, Maya walked beside him holding her drawing folder tight to her chest. The moment Elena saw them, her expression softened. You shouldn't have to come back so soon, she said. Jamal shook his head. Maya wanted to see the other kids, make sure everyone's okay. The little girl looked up, her eyes bright but tired. Is Mr. Grant going to fix the doors now? Elena crouched beside her. He won't be working here anymore, she said gently. Other people will make sure the doors stay safe from now on. Maya nodded, satisfied in the simple way only children can be when the truth sounds fair. As the girl ran off to meet her friends, Elena turned to Jamal. The district called early this morning. Howard's under investigation, the contractor too. The real reports you saved, they're the only reason this didn't get buried. Jamal's voice was quiet, like, you did the right thing when it mattered. She smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. You gave me the courage to. The wind picked up, scattering a few charred flyers across the pavement. One of them landed near Jamal's boot. A photo from the event, printed days before. It showed him and Maya setting up chairs, both smiling. Ordinary, unnoticed, exactly how he liked it. But today, the principal didn't let him fade into the background. She held out an envelope. The district reviewed your background. You used to work in maintenance safety, right, before the warehouse job? Jamal nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. They're creating a new position, she continued. Safety coordinator for the district's facilities. Flexible hours, benefits, you'd oversee inspections, help make sure what happened here never happens again. He stared at the offer for a moment, silent. I'm not a politician, he said finally, I just fix things that are broken. Elena's smile this time was real. That's exactly why you're the right one.
He looked down at this paper again, the first real chance he'd had in years to do more than survive. I'll think about it, he said softly.
As he spoke, Maya came running back, waving her new drawing. It showed the same gym as before, but this time every door was open wide, sunlight pouring in through each one. Elena took the picture in her hands, her throat tightening. It's beautiful.
Maya grinned. Now nobody gets stuck.
Jamal placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice low and steady. That's the goal, kiddo. Behind them, the fire marshal finished his final notes and turned toward Elena. The building's clear, he said, but the story's going to spread. People will ask how this happened.
Elena nodded. Then we'll tell them the truth.
The marshal smiled faintly. That's not something we hear often. As the day wore on, the rain clouds broke for the first time in days. Teachers gathered in the courtyard, students returning one by one. The school wasn't just reopening, it was beginning again, shaped by the reminder that safety wasn't paperwork, it was people. Elena stood beside Jamal as the crowd slowly filtered in. You know, she said quietly, the night it all happened, I kept thinking about how close we came to losing everything. But maybe that's what it takes sometimes, losing your sense of control to remember what matters. Jamal glanced at her, the corner of his mouth lifting. Control's overrated, he said. Paying attention, that's what saves lives. They watched Maya join a group of kids drawing chalk arrows across the sidewalk, marking paths toward the open doors. The laughter that filled the air didn't erase what had happened, but it softened the memory, turned fear into purpose. And as the bell rang, echoing through the newly quiet halls, both of them understood that what they'd built wasn't just a safer school, it was trust, fragile, hard-earned, and worth every scar it took to rebuild.
The lies had burned away, what remained was the truth, and the people brave enough to live by it.
A week later, the smell of smoke had finally faded from the halls. The school felt alive again, laughter echoing through corridors that, for a few terrifying minutes, had nearly become traps. New signs marked every exit now, bold and bright. The walls held faint smudges where soot once clung, but they also held something else, a quiet sense of gratitude. Elena walked the perimeter with Jamal that morning, clipboard in hand. Every door swung open easily, no resistance, no hidden ties. When the last one clicked smoothly into place, she let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Feels different now, Jamal said, running his palm along the cool metal.
Safer? She asked,
He shook his head, more honest. They stopped by the bulletin board where Maya's drawings were pinned side by side. Her newest picture showed the gym full of people, teachers, kids, parents, all standing under wide open doors and bright sunlight. Above it, someone had written in bold letters, "Every door matters." Elena smiled. She's a better artist than most adults are planners. Jamal chuckled. She just draws what she sees, the world how it should be. For a moment, they both fell quiet. Outside, a group of students were writing thank you notes for the firefighters, their voices full of life. The sound filled the space that once echoed with alarms. Elena turned toward Jamal. The district approved your new role, she said. You start next week, safety coordinator for every school in the region. He looked at her, eyes soft but certain. I wasn't sure I'd take it at first, but Maya said something that stuck with me.
What's that?
He smiled faintly. She said, if you can fix doors, maybe you can fix the people who forget to check them. Elena laughed quietly. She's right, we all need reminders. The afternoon sun broke through the clouds, warm and steady. The light filtered through the gym windows, turning the dust in the air into tiny floating sparks. It felt like a second chance. For Jamal, it wasn't about recognition or headlines, it was about walking the halls knowing his daughter and every other child was safe because he refused to stay quiet. For Elena, it was about finally choosing integrity over convenience and rediscovering the purpose that had led her into education in the first place. That evening, as families gathered for the small thank you assembly, the gym was calm. No banners, no cameras, just people sitting together, grateful. Elena spoke briefly, her voice soft but clear. We were lucky, she said, but luck isn't safety. Safety is built by people who care enough to act when it's inconvenient. We'll remember that here, not as a tragedy, but as a lesson. She turned toward Jamal and Maya in the front row, and sometimes the ones who make the biggest difference aren't the ones with titles, they're the ones who notice what others overlook. The crowd applauded, but Jamal simply nodded, his hand resting on Maya's shoulder. As the applause faded, the lights dimmed slightly, and through the open doors, the last of the daylight spilled in, soft, golden, alive. Jamal looked out at the sky, then down at his daughter, who leaned her head against his arm. You ready to go home, kiddo? Yeah, she said, smiling. We did good, didn't we? He smiled back. Yeah, we did. They walked out together through one of the new doors, the metal bar smooth beneath his hand. It opened easily, the way it always should have. And as it closed behind them, the sound wasn't of endings, it was of something beginning again. Because in the end, it wasn't about titles, budgets, or blame, it was about people paying attention, about courage in quiet moments, about the simple promise that no one should ever be left behind a locked door. Do you believe that doing the right thing, even when no one's watching, is worth more than anything money can buy? See you in the next story here at Inspire Fathers Who.